Hey, what's going on, guys? My name is Logan with West Desert Shooter, and in today's video we are going to cover picking up 300 Blackout off the ground and in the dirt and dust to a clean, polished, reloaded piece of 300 Blackout. Now, the components I'm going to be using in today's video are some Gallant bullets, cast powder-coated lead bullets. These are 240 grain, they are a flat base. And then I'm going to be using CFE black powder because really it's the only type of powder I've used in 300 Blackout to this point. Some Federal AR small rifle match primers and Hornady 300 Blackout dies. The brass is just mixed head stamps, got a few different types in there. We're going to go ahead and deprime these so that we can get them cleaned up, and then we're going to go ahead and get them ready to roll. Get them fully resized, make sure everything's within spec there, and go ahead and get them ready to run through my Aero Precision 10.5-inch 300 Blackout. This one has a 1-to-7 twist, a pistol length gas system, and I do run an OSS Magnum tie suppressor out front with their HXQD mount. Obviously, when I go to test these, since this is the first time I am reloading some Gallant bullets, this is a new bullet design, I'm going to take the can off on the first few shots just to make sure that everything's stable. I'll probably shoot at a box at about 25 yards or so and make sure that they're making nice round holes. Enough chat, let's get to going ahead and depriming these pieces of brass here, and then we'll go ahead and go through the cleaning and loading process. Alright guys, so we're going to go ahead and start with just a universal decapping die. This thing will help keep your resizing die a little bit cleaner, especially with suppressed 300 Blackout. It gets a lot more carbon buildup on it, and these landed in really dusty, dirty conditions. So I'm going to go ahead and try and lengthen the life of my dies, and also it'll cut down on cleaning my dies as often as well. So let's get this installed on our press. Let's go ahead and test it, make sure our pin is protruding to go ahead and pop out our primer there. Not too bad. Now I will try and get in a rhythm when I'm doing repetitive processes like this, so as I'm going ahead and depriming these, I'll snag the next piece and keep on moving. So since you guys are watching this video, I'm assuming that you probably have a 300 Blackout. I'm curious what components you're planning on using with bullets and powder, and then also what type of setup you have, what length barrel you went with, and do you run it suppressed? In my opinion, I think 300 Blackout really is a suppressed only cartridge. I've only ever shot subsonics through it. I think that's where it really shines. Now obviously for some self-defense or even hunting loads, lighter bullets going faster are always awesome. So let me know what you guys are thinking on 300 Blackout. So I've now got my brass deprimed and it is all in this little tray. It's going to go into my ultrasonic cleaner here. I do have this full of some hot water because mine does not actually heat. Let me shine. I just kind of sprinkle some in there. You don't want to go too crazy with that. And then go ahead and throw some Dawn. This is good for killing grease and whatnot. Again, you don't want to go overboard. And then pretty simple, you just reach in there and mix it up. And spill water everywhere is a really good time. Make sure you get everything mixed into the solution there. There we go. This is like a little dishwasher, like drying mat, so it helps keep the water here and not all over my reloading bench. And then I just keep my brass organized like this. I do put everything in there meticulously to stand up so that all the air can actually escape. And then you drop it in here. And this thing is super annoying on camera. It makes really high-pitched squeaking noises, and it magically just pulls all the carbon and crap and buildups out of the brass. So let's check that out. So right here, I've got my brass out of the little cleaner here. As you can see, the water is almost black now, even with just over 50 pieces of brass. It was really dirty, and it dirtied up that water pretty bad. So to dry them, also, to put a final polish on them, I go ahead and use a dry media tumbler, and it just absorbs all the fluid right off all this brass. Doesn't take long. I'm probably only going to run this 10 minutes or so. Go ahead and dump the brass in. And this one's annoying on camera too. I'm sure you guys have all seen this before. Vibrates, sucks all the brass down, and it kind of just cycles around as this fine media runs across it and polishes it up and knocks off a little more carbon. We just got these pulled out of the dry media tumbler. They are all nice and polished up. And then I also just took them out to the garage, hit them with a shot of One Shot. Because these are pretty much a straight wall case, One Shot works perfectly fine for them. I've used One Shot quite a bit with good luck. I also have Redding case wax that I'll use for more bottleneck cartridges if I'm trying to bump the shoulder back on more of a bottleneck style cartridge than a 300 Blackout. One Shot's good for this, not a problem. First time using this Hornady die. All right, so let's go ahead and run this up in here. Awesome. Let's take a look at it. Looks good, nice firm contact everywhere. I'm gonna grab my my little pistol here. I'm gonna check my chamber. I'm gonna go ahead and drop that brass in there. Yeah, seems like it cycles just fine. There we go, brass cycled just fine. So this thing's pretty much ready to go ahead and be reloaded. And we will go ahead and verify our overall length with the chamber before we're done. There's not much of a shoulder to really check with the 300 Blackout. I know it is possible, but I don't know if I have the right headspace comparator for that. With my mech marksman press, you guys have got a nice view of here. I really like this press. Single stage, nice large front opening there, but then the sides are super thick. It's basically a C and oval style press. So super strong, rigid. The ram is super buttery. I've never even cleaned this thing or greased it or anything. Been running it for about a year now and had really good success with it. I'm really liking it. I've checked some of the ammo I've reloaded on some of my competition stuff or extreme long range stuff. And with the right die setup and this press, we're getting less than 1,000th run out. Consistently less than 2,000ths. Most of them right around 1. There you go, guys. Just get in a rhythm. We're gonna knock out the rest of these 60 cases. So one thing I want to bring up right here is I have done some load development with my 300 Blackout and the CFE black powder. It certainly seems to like 10.5 grains with the 225 grain ELDX. Now, typically, when you get a heavier projectile, you drop your powder charge, but I was only getting about 850 feet a second with the 225 ELDXs. So I'm actually gonna start with 10.5 grains on these 240s. We'll check for pressure, we'll check for function, and the way I check for function is obviously if it cycles and goes semi-auto, and as well as if it will lock my bolt back on the magazine. I never had any issues all the way down to 10 grains on locking it back, but I bumped it up just a little bit just for that extra reliability on the firearm. So we're gonna try 10.5 grains with the lead bullets here, and we will see how that works out for us. I will definitely make a follow-up video where we go out and shoot this thing. All right, so time to get this brass primed up. Got my Frankfurt Arsenal universal primer here, and we got it loaded up with some small primers. Federal AR small rifle match. The primer itself is actually coated green. Most Federal match primers are coated this way in different colors so you know what they are. So let's go ahead and get some brass primed up for these. All right, guys, so we're having serious problems here. So let's get you guys a view here. This is a crimp remover for small primer pocket. It basically just has a small taper there to hollow out right along the edges of your primer pocket and open them up. A few manufacturers of brass will add a little bit of a crimp to the primer pocket to help seal them. But to reload, you're gonna have to remove those. So to reduce my headaches, I'm just gonna go ahead and buzz through all these. As I'm loading these and priming them, I am considering what I want to do for powder charge. So previously I've done 10.5 grains. With the heavier projectiles, typically you drop your powder charge. So I'm thinking I might try a 10 grain and even down to 9.5, just for like a super quiet load. We'll see if those function. That could be a really fun one. Just kind of a party trick. Look how quiet my 300 Blackout is. And then we can also try some at a little bit higher charge too. So let's go ahead and load up like probably 5 of each. We'll do 10.5, 11, 10, and 9.5. So we'll just kind of run the range of the powder. It is a pretty fast powder. Those are pretty big jumps, but because this is 300 Blackout, low velocity, low pressure, I'm not really worried about it. So obviously we'll start low. We'll start on without a can on it because you don't want to get a baffle strike. And then work our way up, see how it functions, as well as that gives you a good idea of just how low you can go. Because at this point, I have not found like a bottom end of powder charges for my Blackout. All right, guys, we are finally on to powder charges. So everything's primed, the brass has been prepped. So let's move on to powder charges. So I actually have not featured this on my channel yet. This is my RCBS Charge Master Light. So far, I've really been liking it. I've loaded up a couple hundred rounds for my precision rifles. So let's go ahead. We're gonna start with 11, 10.5, 10, and 9.5. And I'm just gonna do 5 rounds each. When I'm out in the field, I'm gonna test them single round feed basically to see if it locks the bolt back 5 out of 5 times, or if it never does, we'll find out. So let's just punch in 11 grains, then hit go. And this thing's automatically just gonna spit out 11 grains. I'm gonna go ahead and grab my charge when it's ready, drop it in my powder funnel. Okay, 11 grains. Because this is not my precision rifle, I mean, whatever it's gonna throw here, I did just recently calibrate it and re-zero it right before I threw that. But because it's not my precision rifle, I'm not chasing like super tight SDs or anything like that. I just want it to basically be 11 grains. So I'm gonna just trust it straight off the RCBS. I do have a secondary scale that I used before I had this, so I could double check it if I really wanted to. But from my experience double checking it on the scale, it always lined up with this RCBS, so I believe it at this point. And usually I'll go ahead and re-zero it every 10 or so charges, just to make sure that the pan hasn't drifted or anything like that. But I mean, outside of that, you kind of just wait for it to spit out your powder charge. Typically, I'll kick on a YouTube video and have a good time while I sit here and wait for it to beep at me. All right, guys, I want to give us an up-close view of what's going on with these 300 Blackout projectiles. Because this is a different shape on these cast lead bullets, I loaded one up, just seated it in there randomly, and it actually ended up a little shorter than I thought it may have. But looking at my 225 ELDX, actually loaded to 2.250, I think, and then comparing like where the tips of the bullets are and how far down it goes into the case against where I seated this Gallant bullet and how far down it goes into the case, I think it's going to be really similar overall internal volume, which should be a good thing, but you can see it's a much shorter overall magazine length. Now the next step I did is I took my comparator here. Now I'm holding my phone with one hand, so this might get a little tricky. All right, guys, checking the overall length on the base to the ogive of the projectile with my Hornady ELD bullets in here. You can see I zeroed it out with this bullet itself, and I know that I've shot this under safe conditions. So then I grab my 300 Blackout with the cast lead bullet in here, and I run this up, and it's 80 thousandths longer, even though it looks way shorter. So what that's telling me is I'm going to have to be careful of where the lands are actually may engage with this. Now I kind of gouged the nose of this one up, so I'm gonna seat another one and see what happens. So I'm gonna need to run this in my chamber. Now this is a loaded round, so safety's on. Point it in a safe direction. Don't touch the trigger. Make sure it goes all the way home. Bolt's completely closed. Let's pop this thing out. Now looking at it, looks like the lands may have come in contact in those 2 little spots. So let's push this back probably 50 thou. That's probably where I'd be comfortable. So let's go ahead and screw our die in just a little bit more. So now we're down to 63 thousandths. But I mean, that's a pretty short overall length. and the difference on these is pretty significant, like as far as magazine length goes, you know. Unfortunately, it is putting that big nasty ring on there. It's because it's more of a VLD style. It's a seating stem designed to seat bullets like this, not like this. The overall length on this, 1.95. That sounds crazy to me, but because it doesn't have that pointed tip, we'll see how it does. I'm also curious how it's going to cycle without having more of a pointed tip. So I guess 1.95 is our overall length on our 300 Blackouts with the 240 grain Gallant bullet. All right, guys, so I did just check the outside bullet diameter near the base of these projectiles, and they are like 310 to 311. So I'm pretty much certain that I should be running these through a lead sizing die, which I'm not. So that's probably why these things are shaving out on me so bad when I'm seating them. So just putting a nice little chamfer on them, and then that helps them not cut so bad. But we need to get some more powder rolling. We're gonna do 10.5. I'd probably say it's better to be oversized than undersized, and with something like lead, a lead projectile, it will swage down to the bore size. And I am being as careful as I can to get this aligned correctly when I run this up into the die. Try and get it to seat straight in there. But I can see little flakes and feel it shaving the powder coating off the back end as it goes into the brass. Well, all right, guys, that is my process on reloading some 300 Blackout. Now, this is my first experience with doing some of the cast lead projectiles, so obviously I ran into a few speed bumps there, but I think we got them figured out for the most part. We're gonna go shoot them and see how they perform, and then I'm also gonna check out the firearm afterward to see how the barrel condition is with these powder-coated lead projectiles. Moving forward from here, I'm gonna do a follow-up video, most definitely, on how these each perform, and then may turn this into a little series, depending on the results here. I'm not real particular on my Blackout. Basically, I want it to run and function, and I want it to be quiet, and at this point, they are now much, much cheaper. The projectiles I was using were about 41 cents a piece, and I picked up 250 rounds for like 40 bucks, I think it was, maybe 45. Just at Sportsman's Warehouse is where I snagged these Gallant bullets. So pretty happy overall. I think it ends up pushing these down to about half the cost. And then with subsonic projectiles, you have a much smaller powder charge as well. So this CFE Black can will go through hundreds and hundreds of rounds before I ever need to buy one other pound of powder. So super efficient little cartridge, tons of fun. I'm hoping that these should ring steel pretty good, being 240 grains. They should smack into it and make a nice little ring. Really looking forward to getting onto the range. I greatly appreciate you guys watching all the way through. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will be doing more reloading content in the future, so be sure to keep an eye out for it, since if you've made it this far, this is your thing. This is what you like. So I'm looking to learn more on the 300 Blackout because I really don't have that much experience there, and that's what I like to do, is kind of document my learning process as I go, see how I can mess things up. So I greatly appreciate you guys' time. Drop a comment below if you have any questions, and we will see you guys in the next one.